I had everything a man could want: a beautiful wife, our first baby on the way, and a thriving career. Amanda and I were the perfect couple in everyone's eyes, especially my family, who adored her like their own daughter. Then Jasmine entered my workplace with her ruthless ambition and vendetta against me for taking the promotion she wanted. I never imagined someone could be so calculated, so determined to destroy another person's life completely. The photo she showed my pregnant wife was just the beginning of my nightmare. Before I reveal how my own family turned against me based on nothing but lies, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that subscribe button if you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted. My name is Bertram, and at 32 years old, I thought I had built an unshakable foundation for my life. I worked as a marketing executive at one of the most prestigious firms in the Northeast, a position I had earned through years of dedication and hard work. Every morning, I would kiss Amanda goodbye in our modest but comfortable suburban Boston home, amazed at how I had managed to convince my college sweetheart to build a life with me. We had been married for 6 wonderful years, weathering the typical challenges of young couples, but always finding our way back to each other. Amanda, with her warm smile and infectious laugh, worked as an elementary school teacher, pouring her natural nurturing instincts into shaping young minds while we waited for the right time to start our own family. That moment finally arrived on a crisp autumn evening. I returned home to find Amanda waiting with a small wrapped package. Inside was a tiny pair of baby booties and a positive pregnancy test. The overwhelming joy I felt in that moment is indescribable. I lifted Amanda off her feet, twirling her around our kitchen as tears streamed down both our faces. Our dream was finally becoming reality. My parents and younger brother Troy were equally ecstatic. At 27, Troy still lived at home, working through some career indecision, but his genuine happiness for us never wavered. Our Sunday family dinners became even more special, with my mother already knitting baby clothes and my father clearing space in their garage for the wooden crib he planned to build. They had always been my unconditional support system. When I doubted my abilities during college or faced setbacks in my early career, my family rallied around me with unwavering faith. They loved Amanda from day one, often joking that they might love her more than me. Troy and Amanda developed a close sibling-like relationship, bonding over their shared love of classic films and homemade pasta. I felt blessed to have such harmony in my life. The trouble began 3 months after our pregnancy announcement, coinciding with my promotion to senior marketing manager. The position had been highly contested, with several colleagues vying for the role. Jasmine Henderson, a relatively new hire with an impressive resume from West Coast agencies, had been the presumed frontrunner until management surprised everyone by selecting me instead. I first noticed her hostility during the congratulatory office gathering. While others offered genuine handshakes and warm wishes, Jasmine approached with a tight smile that never reached her eyes. "Congratulations," she said coolly. Quite the achievement for someone who has never worked outside this company. I chose to ignore the backhanded compliment, chalking it up to disappointment. In the weeks that followed, however, her animosity became increasingly difficult to dismiss. She would arrive at meetings armed with pointed questions designed to undermine my strategies. Client emails would mysteriously be delayed when passing through her department. Small but critical details would be altered in presentations I had prepared. Each time I considered addressing these issues with management, Jasmine would execute some masterful display of teamwork or produce exceptional results that made her seem invaluable. She cultivated relationships with executives, often being invited to social functions outside the office. I later learned she had attended the same prep school as our CEO's daughter, a connection she leveraged frequently. The tension reached a breaking point when our firm landed a major sportswear company account. The client specifically requested me to lead their rebranding campaign, having been impressed by my previous work. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to cement my position and provide greater security for my growing family. As I gathered my materials after the announcement meeting, Jasmine approached my desk. The office had emptied, leaving us alone in the dimming evening light. "You know this account should have been mine," she said, her voice unnervingly calm. "I have the connections and experience you lack. The client specifically requested me." "Jasmine," I replied, trying to keep things professional. "There will be other opportunities." Her expression shifted then, a flash of something dark crossing her features before she composed herself. "You will regret taking what is mine, Bertram. Everyone has secrets. Everyone has weaknesses. I wonder what yours might be." She walked away before I could respond, her threat hanging in the air between us. I dismissed it as petty office politics, never imagining how methodically she would work to identify and exploit the one thing I valued, above all else, my family's trust. The sportswear campaign demanded long hours and frequent client calls. I would often return home well after Amanda had gone to bed, exhausted but fulfilled by the creative challenges. I made sure to call her throughout the day, keeping her updated and connected despite my physical absence. I thought we were managing the situation well until one evening when I found Amanda waiting up, her eyes rimmed with red. "Is everything okay with the baby?" I asked immediately, fear clutching at my chest. "The baby is fine," she answered, her voice unusually flat. "But I am starting to wonder about us, Bertram. This is the third night this week you have come home, after 10 o'clock. I feel like I am going through this pregnancy alone." I sat beside her, taking her hands in mine, explaining the demands of the campaign and how it would settle down in a few weeks. I showed her my calendar, pointing out the client meetings and deadlines that necessitated my late hours. She seemed to understand, but something had shifted between us, a small seed of doubt planted. I did not realize Jasmine had been documenting my every move at work. She noted which female colleagues I spoke with, which clients called most frequently, and especially my late hours. At a company social event the following week, I noticed her discreetly taking photos when I was speaking with female clients. At the time, I thought she was simply documenting the event for social media. Amanda's pregnancy progressed, bringing with it increased hormonal sensitivity. She would sometimes cry over commercials or become frustrated by small inconveniences. I did my best to be patient and supportive, understanding the physical and emotional changes she was experiencing. When she questioned me more intensely about my work schedule or seemed suspicious of text messages from colleagues, I attributed it to pregnancy anxiety rather than a genuine concern about my fidelity. One particularly tense evening, Amanda confronted me about a perfume scent she thought she detected on my suit jacket. In reality, I had been in a client's office where the receptionist wore an overpowering fragrance. The misunderstanding escalated into our first serious argument about trust, leaving both of us shaken and uncertain. What I did not know was that Jasmine had already begun laying the groundwork for her revenge. She had approached Amanda during a lunch break at her school, introducing herself as a concerned colleague who had information about Bertram that Amanda deserved to know. My wife had politely declined the conversation then, but the seed had been planted. I will never forget the exact moment my life imploded. It was a Thursday afternoon when my phone lit up with a barrage of missed calls from Amanda, my parents, and Troy. Before I could return any of them, my office line rang. It was Amanda, her voice almost unrecognizable through her tears. "How could you?" she sobbed. With her. While carrying your child, I struggled to make sense of her words, asking her to explain to slow down. But she was inconsolable. Through her broken sentences, I pieced together that someone had provided her with evidence of an affair between me and a coworker. The accusation was so absurd, so completely fabricated, that my initial reaction was almost amusement. Surely this misunderstanding would be cleared up with a simple conversation. I left work immediately, rushing home to find the doors locked, my key no longer working. My calls went straight to voicemail. Desperate, I drove to my parents' house, certain they would help me navigate this bizarre situation. I never saw the first punch coming. As I walked through their front door, my father's fist connected with my jaw with such force that I staggered backward onto their porch. Troy was next, grabbing my shirt collar and slamming me against the wall with a strength I never knew he possessed. Between blows, I caught glimpses of my mother sobbing in the background, surrounded by extended family members I had not even known were visiting. "How could you do this to Amanda?" My father roared, his face contorted with a rage I had never witnessed. "Your pregnant wife? What kind of monster have we raised?" I tried to speak, to defend myself, to simply understand what evidence had convinced them so thoroughly of my guilt. Each attempt was met with another blow or accusation. My mother, who had never raised her voice to me in all my 32 years, approached with eyes cold as stone. "You are no son of mine," she hissed. "No son of mine would betray his wife, his unborn child, his family name like this." Blood dripping from my split lip, I finally managed to ask what exactly I was being accused of. Troy threw a phone at me. Not mine, but a burner phone I had never seen before. On it were dozens of explicit text messages, supposedly between me and Jasmine, dating back months. There were photos of us together at work, events cropped and angled to suggest intimacy, hotel receipts with my credit card information, but signatures that did not match my own. Jasmine came to Amanda with everything Troy spat. She said she could not keep silent anymore about your affair. She had proof dates, messages, everything. The realization of Jasmine's elaborate setup dawned on me as my own brother grabbed me by the shoulders and physically threw me off the porch onto the driveway, where I had played basketball with him countless times throughout our childhood. "You are dead to this family," my father shouted from the doorway. "How could you betray Amanda? She is carrying your child." They slammed the door, leaving me bloodied and alone, my pleas for just 5 minutes to explain falling on deaf ears. The family that had never doubted me for 32 years had condemned me without a single moment of consideration that I might be innocent. The systematic dismantling of my life happened with breathtaking efficiency. Within 3 days, I received divorce papers from Amanda's lawyer. She was filing on grounds of adultery, seeking full custody of our unborn child, and demanding I vacate our home permanently. The documents included a restraining order claiming she feared for her safety and the safety of our baby. A crushing blow that painted me not just as unfaithful, but potentially violent. My attempts to call to explain to simply be heard were met with legal threats. When I tried to send an email laying out the truth and begging for 5 minutes of conversation, her lawyer responded with a cease and desist letter. My own hastily hired attorney advised me to stop all contact attempts, warning that my emotional state could be construed as harassment. The workplace became equally hostile. Jasmine had spread rumors throughout the office, ensuring everyone knew about my affair and subsequent family drama. Colleagues who had been friends for years suddenly avoided eye contact in hallways. 1 week after the initial accusation, I was called into the CEO's office and informed that my position was being terminated due to moral misconduct clauses in my contract. The sportswear client had requested a different team lead after concerning information had reached them. I left the building carrying a cardboard box of personal items my keycard deactivated before I reached the parking lot. The security guard, who had greeted me warmly every morning for 6 years now, watched me suspiciously, as though I might steal something on my way out. My bank called the next day. Amanda had frozen our joint accounts, pending the divorce proceedings. The credit cards were maxed out with cash advances she had taken before filing. My name was removed from our car insurance. The lease on our apartment was solely in her name, a decision we had made because of her better credit score when we first moved in. Within 2 weeks, I was living in a roadside motel, paying nightly rates that rapidly depleted my meager savings. I applied for other marketing positions, but quickly discovered that Jasmine's network was more extensive than I had realized. References that should have been glowing came back lukewarm or non-existent. The industry was small enough that rumors traveled fast and no one wanted to hire a man accused of cheating on his pregnant wife. At my lowest point, I sat on the edge of the stained bathtub in my motel room, a handful of sleeping pills. I had been prescribed for my now chronic insomnia in my palm. The thought of simply ending the pain, the injustice, the complete isolation was overwhelming. What stopped me was a text from a former junior colleague named Marcus, asking if we could meet for coffee. He had heard rumors, but wanted my side of the story. It was the first person in weeks who had offered to simply listen. That same night, I received an anonymous email with a photo attached. It showed Amanda and Troy entering a restaurant together, his hand placed intimately against the small of her back. The sender, a former neighbor who wished to remain unnamed, mentioned they had been seeing them together frequently even before the accusations against me surfaced. The pieces began to align in a nauseating new pattern. Had my own brother been involved with my wife? Had Jasmine somehow discovered this and used it as the perfect leverage for her revenge? Or worse, had they somehow conspired together? The next 3 months passed in a fog of depression and desperate attempts to clear my name. Every avenue led to a dead end. Jasmine had been thorough in covering her tracks. The burner phone used for the fake text messages had been purchased with cash. The hotel receipts showed legitimate charges to my credit card. Small room service items added to my actual business trips, but with falsified signatures for room charges. The metadata on compromising photos had been altered to suggest ongoing meetings. I lost 30 pounds, barely sleeping, barely eating my entire life, consumed by the effort to prove my innocence to people who had already decided my guilt. The divorce was finalized in record time, with Amanda's pregnancy advancing and her lawyer painting me as an absentee husband attempting to evade responsibilities. I was ordered to pay substantial alimony and future child support despite having no income. The turning point came on a Tuesday morning at a coffee shop where I had stopped before another fruitless job interview. A young woman approached my table, glancing nervously over her shoulder before sitting down uninvited. "You do not know me," she said quietly, "but I am Heather Jasmine's roommate, and I think you should know what she did to you." Over the next hour, Heather revealed that Jasmine had bragged about orchestrating my downfall, showing her the fake evidence she had created, and laughing about how easily my family had turned against me. More disturbingly, she confirmed my suspicion about Troy and Amanda. According to Heather, Jasmine had discovered their secret relationship months earlier and had been saving the information for maximum impact. She said they had been meeting behind your back for at least 6 months, before she exposed everything. Heather explained, pushing a small notebook across the table. I took photos of pages from her journal. She keeps detailed records of everything, like some kind of trophy collection of the people she has hurt. The journal entries confirmed everything: the methodical planning, the doctored evidence, even her delight at how quickly my family had turned against me. But most devastating was the casual mention that Amanda's baby might actually be Troy's, not mine, and that Jasmine had helped them conceal this possibility. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked Heather, my hands shaking, as I flipped through the damning pages. "Because she is doing it to someone else now," she replied, "and because no one deserves what she did to you." The proof came too late to save my marriage, my job, or my family relationships. The divorce was final. The baby, a girl, had been born, and I was legally nothing more than a financial obligation to them. But the evidence gave me something I desperately needed: confirmation of my own sanity and a reason to rebuild. I left Boston 2 weeks later, driving cross-country to Seattle with what few possessions remained. The physical distance provided clarity and perspective I had been unable to achieve in the shadow of my former life. I leveraged my marketing background and some basic coding skills into entry-level information technology work, eventually securing a position with a small software development company. For the first time in months, I could breathe without the crushing weight of betrayal pressing on my chest. No one in Seattle knew my story. No one looked at me with judgment or pity. I was simply Bertram, the new IT consultant, with a knack for user experience design. I threw myself into learning everything about my new field, working 16-hour days to advance my skills and prove my value to the company. Weekends were spent in coffee shops with technical manuals and online courses. The work became both distraction and therapy, giving my mind something to focus on besides the gaping wounds of my past. Slowly, cautiously, I began building connections again. A weekly pickup basketball game at the local community center. A book club at the neighborhood library. Small steps toward trusting humans again, after having my faith in humanity so thoroughly shattered. 2 years into my new life, I began seeing a therapist specializing in trauma and betrayal. Dr. Winters helped me process the complex grief of losing not just my wife and child, but my entire support system and identity, in one fell swoop. "What they did says everything about them and nothing about you," she would remind me during our sessions. "Their choices to believe the worst without evidence reflects their character, not yours." The 3rd-year anniversary of my arrival in Seattle marked a turning point. I had been promoted twice, developed a small but loyal circle of friends, and started my own side business offering specialized IT consulting services. For the first time since the accusations, I spent a holiday season feeling genuine contentment rather than just surviving. I had done what had once seemed impossible, built a life worth living from the ashes of complete devastation. I had no contact with my former family, no knowledge of the child, who might or might not have been mine biologically, no connection to the man I had been before. And yet, I had found a measure of peace in the separation in the clean slate that had been forced upon me. 7 years after leaving Boston, a client project required my return for an industry conference. I approached the trip with trepidation, but also curiosity about how I would react to being back in the city where I had experienced such trauma. I had changed physically, growing a beard, adopting a more athletic build from regular rock climbing, developing a confidence that came from rebuilding oneself from scratch. The conference was being held at the Marriott Copley Place, safely distant from my old neighborhood and workplace. On the second day, during a networking lunch, I felt a tap on my shoulder. Turning around, I found myself face to face with a woman who looked startlingly familiar, a softer, gentler version of Amanda. "Bertram, it is really you," she said quietly. "I am Sophia. Amanda's sister. My instinct was to leave immediately to protect myself from any connection to my past life. But something in her expression, a mixture of sadness and hope, made me stay. Could we talk privately, she asked. Please, 5 minutes. In a quiet corner of the hotel lobby, Sophia told me what no one else had ever offered an apology. I never believed what they said about you, she said, her hands wrapped tightly around a cup of untouched coffee. It never made sense to me. The Bertram I knew would never have done those things. Sophia explained that she had conducted her own investigation years ago, questioning the convenient timing and Amanda's rapid relationship with Troy. Her suspicions grew when she noticed discrepancies in their timeline, leading her to confront them directly about their affair. They admitted everything eventually, she said. Amanda confessed that she and Troy had been involved for months before the accusations. When I asked why they would go along with such horrible lies about you, Troy said it was easier than admitting the truth. They needed you to be the villain to justify their relationship to the family. Her candor was both painful and healing. For years I had wondered if I had somehow misremembered my own life, if there had been signs I had missed or flaws in myself I had failed to acknowledge. Hearing confirmation of my innocence from someone connected to that life provided a closure I had not realized I still needed. I confronted the entire family, Sophia continued. Showed them the inconsistencies, the evidence I had gathered. Do you know what they did? They ostracized me too. Said I was betraying family loyalty by defending you. We talked for hours that afternoon, exchanging contact information before I returned to Seattle. Over the following months, we maintained a cautious friendship through occasional texts and phone calls. Sophia had become a biologist working for environmental conservation programs across the country. When she was accepted to a graduate program at the University of Washington in Seattle, our connection deepened. We moved slowly, both aware of the complicated history between us. I was guarded, afraid of being vulnerable again. Sophia was patient, understanding the depth of betrayal I had experienced. 2 years after reconnecting, we acknowledged what had been growing between us, a genuine connection based on mutual respect and hard-earned trust. When I finally asked Sophia to marry me after 3 years together, we made a conscious decision to build our life completely separate from her toxic family. She had not spoken to Amanda or my former family in years, having chosen integrity over blood ties. 14 years after the false accusations that destroyed my first life, I received an email from an address I did not recognize. The subject line read simply, "I know the truth now." It was from Amanda. She explained that her marriage to Troy had ended after his multiple affairs came to light. Their relationship, built on deception and betrayal, had crumbled under the weight of its own toxic foundation. She admitted that she had learned the truth about Jasmine's fabrications years ago, but had been too proud, too invested in her narrative of victimhood, to acknowledge her part in destroying an innocent man's life. She described how Troy's gambling addiction had gradually eroded their finances, how my parents had aged poorly under the stress of family discord. They were reaching out now, she explained, because they wanted to reconcile. They needed financial help, and Troy had suggested that I might be over it by now and willing to assist family. I showed the email to Sophia, who squeezed my hand supportively as I composed my response. It was brief, calm, and more generous than they deserved. I acknowledge your admission of the truth, but that truth came 14 years too late. You stopped being my family the moment you chose to believe the worst about me without giving me even 5 minutes to defend myself. I have built a life without you, and it is a good one. I wish you well, but we have no future together in any capacity. I felt no triumph in their suffering, no vindication in their regret. The man who would have craved those feelings had died the day they threw him bloodied from the family home. The man I had become understood that the greatest victory was living well, despite them, not because of any justice they might face. 6 months later, Sophia and I were married in a small ceremony in the mountains outside Seattle. We were surrounded by friends who had become our chosen family, people who had proven their loyalty and earned our trust. Together, we had built a successful technology company, specializing in digital identity protection and reputation management, helping other victims of false accusations and online character assassination. Rather than having biological children, we chose to adopt 3 siblings from the foster care system. Children who, like me, had experienced the profound betrayal of those who should have protected them. We created the loving, loyal family I had always believed in, one, built on the understanding that true family is defined by how you treat each other, not by blood or obligation. Jasmine's schemes eventually caught up with her. Her pattern of manipulation and sabotage became her undoing when she attempted similar tactics at a new company and was exposed by colleagues who had witnessed her methods before. The professional consequences she faced brought me no pleasure. I had long since stopped giving her any space in my thoughts. The true victory was in finding freedom from bitterness, in building a life so fulfilling that the injustice of the past became merely a chapter in my story rather than its defining feature. The man who had once contemplated ending his life in a dingy motel room now helped others find their way through similar darkness. The betrayal that could have broken me permanently, instead, taught me resilience I never knew I possessed. 16 years after losing everything, my life bears no resemblance to the one that was taken from me. Our technology company has grown into a nationally recognized leader in digital protection services. Sophia and I have settled into the comfortable rhythm of a partnership built on absolute trust and mutual respect. Our 3 children, now teenagers, fill our home with the chaotic energy of young people discovering themselves. Last month, Troy appeared at our door. Homeless and broken, after years of addiction and failed relationships, he asked for help getting back on his feet. The old wound reopened briefly at the sight of him. Older, haggard, diminished from the confident younger brother who had once helped beat me on our parents' front porch. I did not invite him into our home, the sanctuary we had built so carefully. Instead, I arranged a room at a local recovery center and paid for 30 days of treatment, making it clear this was the extent of my assistance. It was not forgiveness. That would require acknowledgement and amends he seemed incapable of making. It was simply the choice to offer limited help without allowing toxicity back into the life we had created. Setting boundaries with those who hurt us is not cruelty, it is self-preservation. Finding peace without requiring their acknowledgement is not surrender, it is freedom. The family that so easily believed the worst about me taught me the most valuable lesson. True family is built on respect and loyalty, not obligation and blood. The complete destruction of my former life gave me an unexpected gift, the opportunity to build something authentic from the ground up. Without the false accusations, I might never have discovered my resilience or found my way to Sophia and our children. I might never have created a company that helps others reclaim their lives from similar devastation. People who love conditionally never truly loved you at all. Real love stands firm in the face of doubt, seeks truth before judgment, and offers the basic dignity of being heard. My chosen family, Sophia, our children, our circle of loyal friends, gives me what my blood relatives could not. The certainty that I am valued for who I am, not for what I can provide or how well I conform to expectations. The greatest justice is not revenge or even vindication. It is the life well lived despite those who tried to destroy you. 16 years ago, I lost everything. Today, I have everything that matters. If this story resonated with you, I would love to know which part felt most meaningful. Have you ever had to rebuild after betrayal, or known someone who showed extraordinary resilience? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found value in my journey, please hit that subscribe button and like this video. Your support helps me continue sharing these difficult but important life lessons. Remember, your worth is not determined by those who failed to see it. Thank you for listening, and may you find the strength to rebuild after whatever storms life sends your way.